I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground.
St. Valentine's Day Massacre, Chicago, USA, February 14th, 1929. The location was the city of Chicago, and the year was 1929. It was at the height of the Prohibition, when it had become illegal to import, produce, or buy alcoholic beverages in the United States. The date was the morning of February 14th, Valentine's Day, a day for romantic gestures. Though the four men walking down North Clark Street hardly seemed to have got into the spirit of the occasion. They were grim-faced with a determined look. Two of them were uniformed police officers with revolvers drawn. The other two were in suits and ties, armed with Thompson submachine guns. Maybe these two were plainclothes detectives out fighting organized crime that was so rampant in Chicago at the time. The fact that they all had weapons drawn showed they meant business, as they burst into the car garage at number 2122, the well-known hangout of the Moran's North Side Gang, the dominant Irish-American criminal organization. Then, just a few minutes later, there was a sound of rapid gunfire, and then all went quiet. About a minute later, the policemen emerged, with two prisoners with their hands up at gunpoint. So a successful raid capturing two gangsters after a short gunfight? Well, it was not all that it seems, for inside laid 7 men, each with multiple gunshot wounds. 6 were dead, and 1 would die a few hours later in hospital. It had been a very one-sided gun battle, as all 7 had not even had a chance to draw their weapons, having been caught totally by surprise. They had all been ordered to line up against the wall, guns taken away in arrest, and were then sprayed with machine gun fire in cold blood, even as they lay on the floor. 2 of the men were finished off with shotgun blasts. It is thought that the 2 men armed with the submachine guns fired a total of 70 rounds. 5 of the dead were members of Moran's gang, and the other 2 were associates, 1 an optician and 1 a mechanic. His dog was the only survivor. From observation, you would notice that the 2 men being led out of the garage by the uniformed police officers were the same 2 men who had entered earlier carrying submachine guns. So what was going on? It has been universally accepted that it was a hit by Al Capone's organization vying for power in a protracted turf war between the 2 gangs. The police investigation also concluded that the 2 uniformed officers were imposters. The sole survivor of the massacre, Frank Gusenberg, a Moran gang enforcer, lay dying in hospital from 14 bullet wounds. When questioned about who did it, he replied, "No one shot me," keeping the code of silence. Not surprisingly, he passed away 3 hours later from his injuries. The actual target that day had been George Bugs Moran himself. Scarface Al Capone had been behind the death of Jaime Weiss, the previous North Side gang leader. In 1926, he was machine gunned down in the street by Al Capone's men. So it seems that history was about to repeat itself. Moran had been due for the meeting at the garage to supposedly finalize the purchase of a stolen shipment of Canadian whiskey. But he had second thoughts when he neared the garage, as he saw a police car slowly circling the block. So he decided to go with one of his henchmen to a nearby coffee shop instead, in order to figure out what to do next, and luckily escape the fate of the men inside the garage. Capone's lookouts had mistaken one of Moran's men for Moran himself because he was wearing the same type of coat he wore and was similar in height and build. This set things in motion. Moran would later comment on the massacre, saying, "Only Capone kills like that." Al Capone was apparently at his home in Florida at the time of the violent crime. He would say to reporters mockingly, "The only man who kills like that is Bugs Moran." No one was convicted for the murders, and the massacre was not officially linked to Capone, but the photos of the victims shocked the nation and increased his notoriety. Over the course of the next few years, many criminals and gangsters had been linked with the murders. Even the machine guns used in the massacre were recovered, but no one was charged. For Moran, his gang activities never recovered from the St. Valentine's Day massacre and the loss of some of his top men. He faded into obscurity within a few short years, as other gangs muscled in on their gambling operations, which was their main source of income after the repeal of Prohibition. Moran died from lung cancer in 1957 at the age of 63, a penniless man. Many years later, in 1935, the FBI arrested a small-time criminal called Byron Bolton in a shootout. Under interrogation, he tried to turn informant and claimed he knew what happened at the St. Valentine's Day massacre, but his story was full of inconsistencies compared to the known facts. The FBI therefore took no further action, and the massacre is still classed as an unsolved crime.
Whack-a-mole, whack-a-mole, I need a whack-a-mole to whack-a-mole for leaking info Ain't no secret, so if they wanted to know, let me know what they wanna know. Niggas looking for skeletons, but they dead to me like a fucking corpse. Whack-a-mole, I need a whack-a-mole to whack-a-mole. I was gonna invest in a punching bag, but I'd rather punch this nigga in the throat. Since you wanna leak so much, let me provide some bullet holes. You an industry plant, intentionally spying and patrolling my goals. How you selling stories to the press when you just read the spine? I wrote the series, here's a glance of how the plot unfolds. I need a whack-a-mole to whack-a-mole. I'ma whack your ass soon as you come out that tunnel.
Ancient Rome, a place of diverse, rich culture and history, inspired by the many gods, Jupiter, Neptune, Mars, Venus, and more. There were so many festivals in ancient Rome, but today we'll be taking a look at the festival of Lupercalia, celebrated from February 13 to February 15. Lupercalia was proto-Valentine's Day, but it definitely wasn't celebrated the way it is today. Lupercalia was a fertility festival dedicated to Faunus, the Roman god of agriculture, as well as to the Roman founders Romulus and Remus. To begin the festival, members of the Luperci, an order of Roman priests, would gather at a sacred cave where the infants Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, were believed to have been cared for by a she-wolf or lupa. The priests would sacrifice a goat for fertility and a dog for purification. They would then strip the goat's hide into strips, dip them into the sacrificial blood, and take it out to the streets. Men sacrificing goats and dogs. Creepy, but okay, I get it. It was old times. But no, it doesn't end there. After the sacrifice of the goat and dog, men would whip women with the bloody hides of the animals they had just slain. And to put this more into the real atmosphere and picture, the Romans would be intoxicated and without clothes, and far from being fearful, Roman women would line up for the men and welcome the touches of the hides, because it was believed to make them more fertile in the coming year. And this spine-chilling festival actually included a matchmaking lottery, in which all the young women in the city would place their names in a big urn. The city's bachelors would each choose a name and become paired for the year with this chosen woman. These matches often ended in marriage. The ancient Romans may also be responsible for the name of our modern-day love. Emperor Claudius II executed 2 men, both named Valentine on February 14th of different years in the 3rd century. Their martyrdom was honored by the Catholic Church with the celebration of St. Valentine's Day. Hold on. What? How did we just go from pagan Rome to Christianity? Well, after Christianity spread to Rome and other lands, and Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity, he and the Church adopted existing pagan rituals and customs into Christianity in order to convert more pagans. For example, Christmas was originally a celebration known as Saturnalia. But Valentine's Day wasn't something that was galvanized into Christianity during the time of Constantine. It all happened in the 5th century. So let's fast forward to where it all started. The execution. The Catholic Church recognizes at least 3 different saints named Valentine, all of whom were martyred. One legend contends that Valentine was a priest who served during the 3rd century in Rome. When Emperor Claudius II decided that single men made better soldiers than those with wives and families, he outlawed marriage for young men. Valentine realized the injustice of the decree, defied Claudius, and continued to perform marriages for young lovers in secret. When Valentine's actions were discovered, Claudius ordered that he be put to death. Still, others insist that it was Saint Valentine of Terni, a bishop, who was the true namesake of the holiday. He too was beheaded by Claudius II outside of Rome. Other stories suggest that Claudius may have been killed for attempting to help Christians escape harsh Roman prisons, where they were often persecuted. According to one legend, an imprisoned Valentine actually sent the first Valentine greeting himself after he fell in love with a young girl, possibly his jailer's daughter. Before his death, it is alleged that he wrote her a letter signed "From your Valentine," an expression that is still used today. Now, coming to the time of Pope Gelasius I, he muddled things in the 5th century by combining St. Valentine's Day with Lupercalia to Christianize the pagan holiday and bring in more converts. But the festival now was more of a theatrical interpretation of what it once had been, but at least they put their clothes back on. Around the same time, the Normans celebrated Gallatin's Day. Gallatin meant lover of women. That was likely confused with St. Valentine's Day at some point, in part because they sound alike. As the years went on, the holiday grew sweeter. Chaucer and Shakespeare romanticized it in their work, and it gained popularity throughout Britain and the rest of Europe. During the Middle Ages, it was commonly believed in France and England that February the 14th was the beginning of birds' mating season, which added to the idea that the middle of Valentine's Day should be a day for romance. The English poet Geoffrey Chaucer was the first to record St. Valentine's Day as a day of romantic celebration in his 1375 poem, Parliament a Fool, writing, "For this was on St. Valentine's Day, when every fool cometh there to choose his mate." Valentine's greetings were popular as far back as the Middle Ages, though written valentines didn't begin to appear until after 1400. The oldest known valentines still in existence today was a poem written in 1445 and 1415 by Charles, Duke of Orleans, to his wife while he was imprisoned in the Tower of London following his capture at the Battle of Agincourt. The greeting is now part of the manuscript collection of the British Library in London, England. Several years later, it was believed that King Henry V hired a writer named John Lydgate to compose a Valentine note to Catherine of Valois. Now, some of you might be thinking, so what about Cupid? I thought if anything, Valentines might have originated from him.
Yes, but actually no. In fact,
Cupid is often portrayed on Valentine's Day cards as a cherub launching arrows of love at unsuspecting lovers. But the Roman god Cupid has its roots in Greek mythology as the Greek god of love, Eros. Accounts of his birth vary. Some say he is the son of Nyx and Erebus, others of Aphrodite and Ares. Still others suggest he is the son of Iris and Zephyrus, or even Aphrodite and Zeus, who would have been both his father and grandfather. According to the Greek archaic poets, Eros was a handsome immortal, played with the emotions of gods and men, using golden arrows to incite love and leading ones to sow aversion. It wasn't until the Hellenistic period that he began to be portrayed as the mischievous chubby child he'd become on Valentine's Day cards. Eventually, the tradition made its way to the New World. The Industrial Revolution ushered in factory-made cards in the 19th century, and in 1919, Hallmark Cards of Kansas City began mass-producing Valentines, and February has not been the same since. And now, St. Valentine's Day is more or less a holiday of big business.
No chorus, no hook, no bridge, no curtains, no drapes, no shade.
I'm not your umbrella, I'm not your tree. If I was Cinderella, no, the prince already rests with me. I'm not throwing shade, but I will light your ass up. Let's get it deep. I see you throwing shade, like you talk fans with praise. How you ridiculing someone like we can't see you was at the masquerade? Why you disrespectful, then blame it on the cocaine? How you criticize someone being afraid, then run away? I'm not your umbrella, I'm not your tree. If I was Cinderella, no, the prince already rests with me. I'm not throwing shade, but I will light your ass up. Let's get it deep.
No chorus, no hook, no bridge, no curtains, no drapes, no shade.
I'm not your umbrella, I'm not your tree. If I was Cinderella, no, the prince already rests with me. I'm not throwing shade, but I will light your ass up. Let's get it deep. How you throwing shade, but can't catch a play? How you firing shots, but your gun a prop for display? How you a bully and rob to get paid? How you gonna come for me, but expect me not to retaliate? I'm not your umbrella, I'm not your tree. If I was Cinderella, no, the prince already rests with me. I'm not throwing shade, but I will light your ass up. Let's get it deep.
No chorus, no hook, no bridge, no curtains, no drapes, no shade. No chorus, no hook, no bridge. No curtains, no drapes, no shade.
Hey friends, the long-awaited day of love for everyone is here. It's a day when everyone expresses love. But why? Why do we even celebrate Valentine's Day? Let's learn about it in today's episode. Zoom in! There are quite a few stories shedding light on the origin of Valentine's Day. One of which takes us back to the 3rd century Rome, which was going through a lot of religious turmoil as many Romans were converting to Christianity. This didn't go well with their pagan emperor Claudius II, who was a strict ruler and wanted to stop it. Plus, there was one priest who attracted much disfavor from the pagan emperor for helping fellow Christians, and it was Saint Valentine. That's because he lived in a time when the Roman Empire was in danger and faced threats from inside and outside the borders. And of all the goofiness that could have been possible for the inability of the Roman army in defending the empire effectively, there was one that stood out to the emperor particularly. He was of the opinion that marriages were causing distractions among the soldiers. So he derived the decision to ban the soldiers from getting married, as it was making them weak and straying from their path of battling for the empire. The ban on marriage came as a shock to the people, and it left them in emotional distress. It is then Saint Valentine decided that by the powers bestowed on him, he would secretly help the soldiers to tie the knot and began performing ceremonies in the church. Due to this act of love, Saint Valentine became the angel who helped the emotionally distressed. He also handed out heart-shaped parchment to remind these men of their vows and God's love. Everything seemed to go well, but only for a while. It was not long before the knowledge of this secretive mission went into the wrong places and was reported to Emperor Claudius II. This annoyed the emperor so much that in his outrage he ordered Saint Valentine to be arrested and locked him up in a dungeon. But this was just the beginning of another story for Saint Valentine. Yes, in jail in which the saint was kept had a jailer named Asterius, who noticed Valentine talking and helping the people around him in the dungeon. He also noticed how knowledgeable he was. Convinced that Saint Valentine was a man of learning, he started to bring his blind daughter, Julia, to him in hope of being healed by him. As Julia was a young girl with a sharp mind, Saint Valentine began reading her books about Roman history and gods. This way, she began to see the world through his eyes, and according to some legends, Saint Valentine also eventually healed Julia's eyesight. Asterius was so happy by this that he readily surrendered to Saint Valentine and took up his faith, Christianity. Soon, this news spread like fire, and the guards learned about the activities taking place in the dungeon. The pagan emperor was at last informed about the ongoings inside his own castle's dungeons and how Valentine was working his charm over the jailer. So the enraged emperor immediately ordered Valentine to be summoned before him. Emperor Claudius II asked Valentine to respect his decision of not allowing the soldiers to marry, as well as to give up his religion. To both of which Valentine politely declined. The emperor took Valentine's hostility as an insult to his esteem and sentenced him to be executed. Just before the execution, Saint Valentine wrote his last letter to Julia on the 14th of February. He handed over the letter to Asterius to give to his daughter. When she opened the letter, she saw his sign, "From your Valentine." Oh, Trivia time! Did you know it was much later in 496 AD that Pope Gelasius declared 14th February an official holiday to honor Saint Valentine? Today, Valentine's Day is the fifth largest consumer spending event in the United States after the winter holidays and Mother's Day.
I see red. I feel cold. I'm feeling cold-blooded. I see red. I'm about to explode. Someone about to get gutted. Someone about to be exposed. I'm feeling cold-blooded. Break them down. Decompose. I'm feeling cold-blooded. And it's uncontrolled. Cause I see red. I see them gutted. I see them dead. Kids abducted. I need to dump a load. I'm feeling cold-blooded. I'm not composed. I feel cold-blooded. Bullets about to reload. I see red. I'm about to revolt. I see lead in a troll. I see him dead. I see organs sold. I feel cold-blooded. Shots fired. Casket closed.
We are going into February now and coming out of January, coming out of the New Year's. Into February now, there was a celebration done by the Romans called the Lupercalia. And the Lupercalia was based upon their gods of Pan and Juno. They also, February is actually named after one of their gods as well. And so this is a time where you're coming out of the winter and you're going toward the spring season. And so they used to have large gatherings of young people, and they would take the name of women, put them in a large container, and the men would choose them and literally have a sexual relationship. So it was based upon this, Cupid concept. The Greek word is eros, erotica. Okay, so erotica is basically sexuality that pushed the people towards loose, open sexual relationship. And so that was the main issue on this occasion. And this is where you get cupids from and hearts and things like that. What happened was they combined this with an individual named Valentine, who in the Roman times, in the 3rd century of the Roman era, he was protecting young people. The Romans said no marriage because we want men to fight strong in battle, so we're not going to let you get married. Valentine, a religious priest, he is an innocent person who's protecting young people and wanting them to get married according to the rules of the church. He disagreed with this. They put him in jail. He went against the state. Eventually, they executed him. And on the day of his execution, he wrote a letter to 2 of the young people getting married, and he said, "From your Valentines." He's St. Valentine's. So they took the concept of the open sexuality, put the name of a Christian priest on it, so it seems like a holy day. It seems like it's innocent. It's like they say, a wolf in sheep's clothing, meaning that it appears to be innocent on the outside because Valentine was protecting young people. But actually, it's the open sexuality of the Lupercalia. It is an occasion where more people commit fornication and adultery, where rape happens. If you look at the amount of abortions and so-called unwanted pregnancies, this is a sad case in terms of what is happening in society. And what it is leading to is a society that has no limits, that where modesty is gone and where respect for the family is gone. Not only is it going against the law of God, but secondly, it creates sexually transmitted diseases. It is one of the big problems and plagues in the world today when people do not organize their life, take responsibility for their sexuality. There's a lot of damage that actually comes along with it, especially for the women. The problem is that the socialization, that the society itself teaches people how to take it a step further. Today, erotica is an overriding concept. And so when they watch the television programs or movies, every movie they're falling in love, even cartoons. Why? Erotica. And that is the dangerous thing for Muslims and people of conscience. So therefore, we're saying to Muslims, don't play around with the devil. Because what is happening is that young people are being fooled into focusing their life on their sexuality, as opposed to focusing their life on their education, on their physical fitness, and then grow into their sexuality. This is how societies develop themselves over the centuries. And when we look at the Quran, it tells us, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. The Quran, the Last Testament says, do not come close to fornication and adultery, because it is an abomination and it will destroy everything in the path. Now, other sins, do not kill, do not steal, do not be jealous of your neighbor. You know, Allah says, don't do it. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. Don't kill innocent people. But when it comes to adultery and fornication, Allah didn't say don't commit adultery. He said don't come near adultery. And so a man is naturally attracted to a woman is attracted to a man. So that's why Allah said don't come near it, because it's something that we want to do. We are built to do that in order for the species, you know, to maintain itself. So therefore, what Islam is saying is that yes, have sexuality, but do it within the confines of marriage. Do it in an organized fashion where the man respects the woman, where the family is set up, where he takes care of his children, and how people can protect themselves, and how sexuality can actually be a beautiful thing. It can be a halal, permissible thing, and not something wild and uncontrolled. And you'll find there are groups in Christianity and Judaism and other religions that know about the history of the Lupercalia. They know this. And they also are protecting themselves, because this is the basis in all upstanding religions, to protect the family, to protect the sexuality, and therefore you protect society.
Dear Mr. Capone, will you be my Valentine? Can we vacation in Miami? Plan a massacre, plan a crime. Dear Mr. Capone, will you be my Valentine? Can we drink some whiskey, gallon size? I'm always down for wine and dine. Dear Mr. Capone, will you be my Valentine? I know you like the finer things in life. Cadillacs, suits, brides. I know you don't like being called Scarface, so I'm okay with Al, if you don't mind. Dear Mr. Capone, will you be my Valentine? I know you're the public's enemy, but I think we would have a good time, as we both are out of our minds.
In the 1930s, Al Capone bribed news reporters to avoid his mother finding out he was a gangster.
Local hero Al Capone stopped what he was doing today just to warm the neck of a very cold man.
Eventually she found out, and Capone started committing crimes in a nicer way to alleviate his guilt.
I'm really sorry, but I'm kind of robbing you. I feel really bad about it, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you these book vouchers.
He also tried to justify his actions by portraying himself as a Robin Hood figure.
This guy we're taking out, he's a real bad dude, huh? Nah, he owns a charity. That's the money we're getting. But it's one of those kind of poorly run charities, right? Where a lot of the funds kind of end up in... No, it's one war.
So he offered free therapy to the family members of everyone he killed.
I feel like I've been traumatized by violence.
Right, so I'm really sorry. I just need to pop outside to sort something. Who the hell, you cockroaches? I'm sorry, it was...
Let's bootleg some moonshine. I'll wear boots thigh high. Let's bootleg some moonshine. Have our limbs intertwined. Let's bootleg some moonshine. Stretch out my spine. Let's bootleg some moonshine and count the stars in the sky. Let's bootleg some moonshine and have a prime time. Let's bootleg some moonshine with caramel apple pie. Let's bootleg some moonshine, sushi and Thai. Let's bootleg some moonshine tonight.
I might be by. Let's bootleg some moonshine. We can get baked or fried. Let's bootleg some moonshine. I want you to recline and then rise. Let's bootleg some moonshine. Just slide my penny to the side. Let's bootleg some moonshine. Now wear boots thigh high. Let's bootleg some moonshine. Have our limbs intertwined. Let's bootleg some moonshine. Stretch out my spine. Let's bootleg some moonshine and count the stars in the sky. Let's bootleg some moonshine and have a prime time. Let's bootleg some moonshine with caramel apple pie. Let's bootleg some moonshine, sushi and Thai. Let's bootleg some moonshine tonight. I might be by. Let's bootleg some moonshine. We can get baked or fried. Let's bootleg some moonshine. I want you to recline and then rise. Let's bootleg some moonshine. Just slide my penny to the side.
Moonshine.